Hey guys, welcome. Today I'm going to explain the dismissive-avoidant breakup cycle. A lot of people trying to get their dismissive-avoidant ex back are doing it, dare I say, at the wrong time, where every text or call might actually be pushing them further away without you even realizing it. Because to your avoidant, this isn't a clean-cut breakup. Instead, they're cycling through 5 very specific emotional stages, and what works at stage 2, for example, might completely backfire at stage 5. And because I'm a former dismissive avoidant myself, I know this breakup cycle inside and out. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 stages of your dismissive avoidance breakup cycle, exactly what they're thinking, even feeling, so that you can make sense of what's actually going on in your avoidant's head and heart, and ultimately how to bring them closer. The first thing I'd like you to keep in mind is that there's a really good chance your avoidant genuinely still cares about you. As my wife and I like to emphasize, avoidants are actually far more attached than they ever show, or even consciously know themselves. But they do not move at your pace. That's because they're processing their emotions on a completely different timeline. A snail's timeline, in fact, much, much slower. If this is you, then this is your dismissive avoidant. And you're processing your emotions at this pace. Meanwhile, they are moving like this. So by the time you're all the way there, they're still moving at this snail's pace. So anytime you're reaching out too soon or in the wrong way, you're regrettably resetting the clock on their 5-stage process. And if you're not sure whether your ex is actually a dismissive avoidant, take our 1-minute free quiz in the video description. So your breakup happened. It might have been a sudden harsh breakup that came without warning, or a soft breakup with them distancing themselves slowly without actually communicating much. Now let's figure out at which of the 5 stages of this breakup cycle are they in. Stage 1, certainty about the breakup. In the first stage, your avoidant is going to be feeling very certain about the breakup. They are telling themselves, I made the right choice, this was inevitable. Heck, they might even tell you, this is better for both of us. We'll both be happier for it. Their sudden switch from warm, caring, and attentive to cold and distant and uncaring might hit you like an absolute pile of bricks. What I often see with my coaching clients is that this really comes out of the blue for them. Everything seemed fine, maybe even great. So where did their decision to break up suddenly come from? Not that this makes it hurt any less, but these kinds of decisions do not come out of nowhere. They generally build up over weeks, sometimes even months before they are ever made. However, your dismissive avoidant may not have realized they felt this way, or they chose to keep it hidden. During this stage, some of you will have pleaded and apologized to try and make them change their mind. Others might have accepted it as quickly as the decision was made and played it cool. Now, whichever your path was at this stage, it is important to do your level best to accept the breakup. Pushing hard to reverse it mostly only fuels your avoidance certainty that the breakup or space was the right decision. Stage 2, relief about the breakup. In this second stage, your avoidant is actually feeling relief. I know it can be hard to hear, but at first they're glad to have left all the responsibilities of a relationship behind that they felt were overwhelming them. When I first broke up with my now wife, then girlfriend Carolina, it gave me a sense of freedom, honestly, that I could go about my life the way I like to live it without having to take anybody else into consideration. I've also had a few clients of mine who experienced sudden horrible breakups after they felt sick. Now, you might be thinking this is all so heartless. How could somebody be so cruel and cold, especially after having been in a relationship with someone? You see, the fact of the matter is dismissive avoidants are often the very people that have experienced so much neglect and rejection in their own childhood to a point where they embody the message, I don't need anybody, I can't trust anybody, even to a point where they believe They don't have emotional needs, and they must be independent at all costs. And in addition to that, I can tell you from my own experience that I was burdened with responsibility that should never have been mine, and missed out on an entire childhood and young adult life because of it. What all this accumulates to is an individual who's hungry to catch up on everything they missed out on and are desperately trying to protect that. So when you come into their life with the most reasonable of expectations, like wanting to build a normal functioning relationship, they can easily feel threatened, like you're trying to burden them with responsibility that they are not ready for, or that in their mind should not be asked of them. In other words, because of all these distorted beliefs that they carry, they end up feeling entirely overwhelmed and unable to cope. This is why your breakup feels like a relief to them. This is also why reaching out to them at this stage is generally the most risky and likely to backfire, because they are not available or receptive just yet. Stage number 3, doubt about the breakup. This is where things finally become a little more hopeful. After a week, sometimes more, your dismissive avoidant will start to feel some doubt around the breakup decision. Suddenly, things aren't quite so clear. The silence that followed the relief stage now feels a little too empty. The relief starts to feel like a void, and they begin to miss your company, your presence, all the life you brought to their life. A coaching client of mine who was in a 10-year marriage was really struggling with her dismissive avoidant. One day, her husband suddenly decided they had to live separately. So she moved out, but they still were working together on their shared business and had kids and other shared responsibilities. Now, it took quite a long time for him to slowly start moving from the second relief stage into the third doubt stage, but I continuously reassured her that if she implemented the strategy we planned and she didn't push too much, he could eventually come around, because he was very clearly still attached to her and didn't want to unravel the whole life they had built together, including their business and making their children choose between them. A few weeks after the relief stage, he moved into the doubt stage and started engaging more, finding excuses to talk to her at work and even inviting her over to their place again. What's tricky about the doubt stage is that even if your avoidant is having doubts about the breakup, they're very unlikely to express that to you. So, from your perspective, it might look like nothing has changed and that they are still firm about the breakup. So, look out for subtle signs that they are trying to reconnect, like sending you a message or liking a social media post of yours. Small as they may be, they can indicate that they are currently in the doubt stage. Stage 4, the reality of the breakup. Now, if you remain consistent and don't get too eager when you see the initial signs of them coming back, you'll finally reach the 4th stage where the breakup actually hits your dismissive avoidant and it suddenly dawns on them that you are out of their reach. But remember, this only applies if you yourself have applied what we talked about on stage 1 and were able to accept the breakup. This is the only way for your dismissive avoidant to realize you may no longer be waiting around for them and pining after them, that you yourself might be having doubts. This is an incredibly important stage that you need to let your dismissive avoidant reach. Because as long as they believe that they've got you wrapped around their finger, they have zero incentive to change their mind about the breakup. They feel like they have all the time in the world and you'll just be hanging around waiting for them. So once you have accepted the breakup and have given them the time to work through the first stages, the reality of the breakup will finally hit them, and that's when you can expect them to start feeling remorse and regret about the breakup. They'll start to feel worried that they will lose you for good and that there's no going back. At this point, some dismissive avoidants will play it cool while others will panic. This brings us to the final stage, stage 5. They come back. This is where they finally start to reestablish contact and potentially reconnect with you emotionally. Now, with dismissive avoidants, they tend not to care about gradually getting into your good graces again. Instead, they interact with you as though the breakup never even happened. picking up exactly where you left off last. A client of mine, Stacy, went through a devastating 4 weeks after her breakup, believing it was truly the end. However, her avoidant ex reached out to her shortly after and wanted to grab lunch. There was no mention of a breakup, of the 4 week period that had passed with almost no contact, or anything about the relationship problems. Not to say that this is a fair way of dealing with it. However, it is not unusual for dismissive avoidants to handle breakups in a way where they pretend it never happened. And I'm telling you this just so that you're ready for it and aren't caught off guard should it happen. From here, things might seemingly go back to normal, at least for a while. If while watching this, you're recognizing that your avoidant is in between stages 3 and 5 especially, this is your window. Because it's not called a dismissive avoidant breakup cycle for no reason. There's a very good chance that they will find their way back to stage 1 where they feel overwhelmed and are convinced again that the breakup is the only way forward. So you need to know exactly what to say, when to say it, how to show up so that their unprocessed wounds aren't triggered uncontrollably again. That is exactly what Attach and Avoidant walks you through. It's our online program, which my wife and I made based on our own journey as a dismissive, avoidant, and anxious couple, as well as all our coaching clients that shared their feedback with us. Check it out in the video description. Now, if this is your first time going through the dismissive avoidant breakup cycle, and if you are at stage 4 or 5 and your avoidant is coming back to you, you might feel like the worst is over and you can finally get back to your perfect harmony. So in an effort to protect you from potential disappointment, I would highly recommend you watch my wife's video next, where she explains the secret that made me finally feel safe with her so that you don't have to go through another heartbreaking cycle with your dismissive avoidant again. Click here to watch that video.